Hello, Megan. Welcome to my YouTube channel.
Yay! Thank you for having me.
So, we are local Biz Buddies, and we are also members of the Feral Book Club, which everybody on here knows about. Well, they should know about. It's everywhere on this channel. I don't know how you'd miss it. But you and I are both coaches. We both play in the marketing space, especially in the online space. And we had this conversation offline about is it a therapy problem?
Mm.
Is that a therapy thing? And we thought, you know what, it'd be so great to hop on the mic today and talk about from the perspective of two coaches who legitimately have actually actively had paying clients, many paying clients. Where the center of the Venn diagram exists, where therapy and coaching do play together, where something is truly just a therapy thing, where something's truly just a coaching thing.
Mhm.
I'm just gonna tee us up, before I have you tell us a little bit more about you. But we are gonna talk about, how things have definitely started to show themselves post-COVID, where we really are at psychologically and emotionally,
Mhm.
because neither of us believes that any of these things did not exist before COVID, but being home all the time during COVID and all the stress we've been through means that the ability to mask has definitely diminished. And so now we're seeing things show up in a patterned way. And I was so thrilled that I was not imagining it and I was not the only one. And that we can have an open discussion about this because I don't know about you, but I have a lot of coaches in my client list and I know that they are also grappling with this too. So having an open conversation will be good. So that is the tee up, but can you tell us a little bit about you before we get started?
Absolutely. Hi, hello, I'm Megan. Huh. I am an equity-centered coach and copywriter and trademark word nerd. My background is in classical acting, into 1.5 million part-time jobs, into Pilates instructor, and it's a very long and winding story, but now I'm here. Those are the highlights. And I wanted to mention those because I think it gives context that the work I have done has always been really emotionally charged, whether or not it's like a direct linear, this is emotional. So like theater and when I was a professional actress, like yes, that everyone understands, like emotionally charged, absolutely, totally get that. Um Pilates, like our bodies store emotions. You're sensible woo, so I can get a little woo, yeah? Yeah. We
Yes,
all know,
yes.
and also coming out of COVID and the body keeps the score. We all understand our bodies store emotion. And I always said in my Pilates classes, hey, like if we are doing an exercise and something just suddenly opens up, one, I want to give you the heads up that that might happen. Might not, but it might. And I don't want that to scare you. Two, you are always welcome to leave my class at any time. I'd love to say no questions asked, but I will be checking in to make sure that you are physically safe. Like, do we need to call an ambulance? Do we everyone still together, nothing's broken? But if you need to remove yourself, please do. You do not need to explain what you're feeling. You do not need to explain whatever cracked open. Take care of yourself. It's not a guarantee, but it's a distinct possibility that that's going to happen.
I love that so much. I had noticed in my corporate career as a technologist how much emotion came up with people around technology. If the internet went out, if infrastructure broke down, you could instantly see who was somatically very dysregulated in an office. And I'm wondering how soon, I mean, the acting thing makes total sense because you are literally tapping into your emotional body. But how early did you notice the emotional component that maybe people shouldn't be segregating these things?
I mean, immediately. One of the things I went to fancy drama school in London, uh, and one of our instructors and one of the components was just a pure movement class, not even necessarily character movement, but just do you understand how to use the meat sack you're existing in? And how is your meat sack different? And like, where are your limits? All that good stuff. And that was one of the themes of like, you're going to find stuff as an actor that's going to crack open that has nothing to do with what you're doing, but everything to do with what you're doing. So, how can you regulate yourself? Like, how can you hold two things at once, your performance and whatever's going on with you, which is its own like business or therapy, the business of your performance or your own emotional breakthrough.
So I love this because I was never a professional actor, but I for fun would take acting classes after work because I worked in entertainment for crying out loud and I lived in LA. Like why wouldn't you do that,
Of
right?
course you
And
would.
I did stand up. And whenever I've had business people get really stuck in showing up,
Mhm.
my advice has always been go take an improv class, go try stand up if you're that brave.
Yeah.
Go take an acting class, just basic scene study acting 101. Learn breath work, learn to be present with somebody, learn to feel something and have other people feel what you feel. That's the reason why we tune into stories on TV and movies is because they are taking us on an emotional journey. And okay, so I want to like take this thread because feelings are ever present in business.
Mhm. And if you run your own business, as much, no matter how amazing you think you are at compartmentalizing, you cannot cleave your personal self from your business self. It's not going
No.
to happen.
I also really feel like do you feel like the old traditional online business programs of old, I'm just gonna say it out loud, B school. Do you feel that that era of programming purposely cleaved people's emotions away from the thing they were building?
Yes and no. I actually don't think it did. It said it did, and but it was absolutely built on the assumption that it was not. Because
Yeah.
all of the marketing, both that it uses and that it teaches, is very fear-based, scarcity-based. It is emotional. The truly almost impressive gaslighting is that we're being told that it's absolutely not emotional when it is relying on nothing but emotional coercion.
It is emotional coercion because the sales page structure of old is get them to feel lack that
Pain
their
point,
problem
pain
is
point,
bigger
pain
than it
point, pain
is.
point.
Mhm. Pain points, pain point, pain points. And like, yes, we need to be aware of our pain points. We need to be aware that we need to fix something. Like that's really what we're trying to do when we're leading somebody through a decision-making process. But to like to exacerbate pain points?
There's a big difference between saying, "You have a problem that you don't even know you have. You have a problem because you feel this, that means this problem. You feel this, that means this problem. You feel this, that means this
Mhm.
problem. I have the answer." There's a big difference between that and, "Hey, are you feeling X, Y, and Z?" Yeah, I get that. You're feeling X, Y, and Z because of A, B, and C. Here is something I have that can help. And I think a huge part of a shift in marketing that we're seeing a little bit, and I really hope it continues, is a very a frankness and an honesty in the limitations of these products, of these courses. It's no longer a this is going to fix it. It's not as many sweeping generalizations and more this will do this specific thing, and this specific thing. Which I also
Yeah.
think means we're moving away from like the value stuffing and the like worth 7.97 but yours today for 49.
So
Your
much.
PDF is never worth 7.97. I'm so sorry, but it's
No,
absolutely not.
no,
I say
no.
this as
And
a
also
person who has bought a $500 PDF before. Like, I wanna be clear, there's like, I'm not throwing stones from glass houses.
we have all bought things for very hefty prices. Okay, let's take this emotional framework and let's move it into what you and I have seen in coaching. So somebody comes into a program. I would dare say in today's day and age that the majority of us, I will raise my own hand on this, run into things, and we're rather dysregulated when we arrive on the doorstep. And when does something, in your opinion, leave the realm of this is appropriate for the coaching space, and this is now something that I need to talk about with my therapist, and or I need to seek out therapy because business coaching has showed me something I previously was not aware of?
Two things. I think there it my I immediately think of this splitting in two ways. One, if the expectation is that your business coach is going to fix something for you,
Mm,
especially if it's like, I know I'm this type of person, but if I work with this business coach, they're going to fix that part of me. Like
mm.
if there's any like that, I can fix them or they can fix me energy. Ooh.
Do you think people are aware of that though? Like consciously aware? I've seen it unconsciously
I
or
mean,
subconsciously, I should say.
largely subconsciously, and I think we are, for better or for worse, TikTok has given us all a lot of therapy language. And the better side of it is I think folks are becoming aware. I bring this up all the time in both with friends on podcast interviews, and I need to actually look up this dude's name because I don't remember it. But he has a model of competence. Somebody is going to get in the YouTube comments and be like, "Well, actually, great. Well, actually, me to death." That he has a model of competence where it is unconscious incompetence, conscious incompetence,
Yeah.
conscious competence, and unconscious competence. And I
Yeah.
think for like culturally, we are moving into the conscious incompetence when it comes to therapy problems, and especially within the online business space, therapy problems and coaching. And
Yeah.
so I think as coaches, part of our due diligence is talking with I mean, being a coach is asking the right questions. Part of it is doing our due diligence to ask the right questions about the emotional state of the person in front of us, not just the state of their business, not just what their expectations are, but it's not our job to evaluate whether or not you have a therapy problem, per se, or that you should go to therapy, but it is our job to evaluate the limitations of our work.
Are we talking about boundaries right now? Because
Mhm.
that sounds like a boundary issue.
It is a boundary. It's not just a boundary issue, it's an ethics issue.
Yeah.
And
I would so agree. I would so agree. And I think there's also a reverse thing happening where the coaches, there's a lot of clients who are very unhappy because they've discovered that they're working with a unconscious, incompetent coach. And then they're going, oh, wait a minute. And and I think this is where the need for slowing down is so important right now,
Mhm.
which can be really frustrating because everybody wants to make sales. We all need to like pay our bills and like enroll people in our courses. You and I were just talking about this. We have our own programs. We want to enroll people too, you know.
Yeah.
But I think like until you can find a foothold in nervous system regulation,
Mhm.
it's going to be really hard for you to see the forest through the trees when you're looking at, is this the right person? Is this the right thing? I have been really adamant over the last year. It has been maddening in terms of revenue to be slower with my sales prospects and to be like, you can take your time. Do not rush into this. Part of it for me is a very woo woo thing because in human design, the majority of the world are emotional bodies, and our authority is emotional, which means you need to ride your emotional wave and you should not be making decisions on the fly. And even people who are like sacral authority, like they need time too. So
We all need processing time, and if I'm sure everyone has said, if COVID taught us anything, but one of
mm,
the things COVID has taught us is how much processing time we actually do need because we were forced to slow down. Granted, under extremely traumatic circumstances, but we were forced to slow down, which brought a lot of it reminds okay, I'm gonna bring it full circle to theater, but my
do it.
training is in classical acting, and one of the things that one of my teachers always said that I absolutely love is that the pacing of any Shakespearean tragedy needs to go like this. Because the
Yeah.
point of the tragedy is at no point does anyone stop and go, "Wait a second. Hold up.
Mhm.
If at any point any character went, "Can we just think about this for a second?" Like, take it
Yeah.
the most famous tragedy, like, if at any point Macbeth was like, "Wait a minute," and he's even the weenie of that play. Like,
I
he's
know.
not even the power character, he is the one dragging his feet, and yet he's not ever actually taking a moment. He's dragging his feet while running ahead.
Mhm.
But if at any point he had stopped to be like, "Hold up here. Maybe," I mean, who knows what Lady Macbeth would have done on her own, but
There's a book now. I won't get us on a tangent. Our ADH brains will go there, but there's a book now, and it's Lady Macbeth and her perspective, just
all right, I'm gonna
FYI.
need all the deets later.
I will.
Point being is that I think in the online, especially like the online, I refer to it, you and I have talked about this, I refer to it as the online business industrial complex.
I am going to link to your blog, by the way, in the show notes.
Marvelous.
So, we'll make sure everyone gets that. Yep.
Great. The concept being that, like, this is its own money making profit machine that
Yeah.
isn't necessarily built for the things that it says it's built for. And part of the online business industrial complex is making quick decisions to get quick cash infusions that will never trickle down.
Yeah.
They are always funneling up toward the top, toward the big names that we all know or that we don't know, but are behind. There, I
Yeah.
mean, whether or not we want to admit it, within the online business space, there is an upper echelon that
Oh, yeah.
almost everything is connected back to. Pull any thread, and it's all going back up to that. And those are the people who are pulling in all the cash, unless you are consciously divesting from what are considered best practices of online business, unless
Yeah.
you are consciously questioning and dissenting in
Yeah.
places, and not even necessarily being like, "This is wrong," but just being honest with, "I don't agree with that."
I think that I my personal take on this is that that dissent is happening more quietly than we think of when we think of dissent. I think
Yes.
there is a ragepreneur community that is raging very vocally online right now, and I'm like, "You do you, boo."
Yep.
But rage is just noise, and actions are the thing.
And the ragepreneur community is not, they are raging against those that are currently in power and those that have historically been in power, but they are trying to break that group from power so they can step into power. They are not reimagining, it's the problem of
Mhm.
white feminism. They're not
Oh, this is
reimagining a new system. They're
yeah,
just trying to replace it with quote unquote better people.
yeah, yeah. So, okay, in
That's not how any of it
let's
works.
take let's take God, my brain is in, like, so many directions. We were like, "How do we contain ourselves on this recording?" I don't know. Maybe it'll be like a series of 10. I have no idea. Um, so ragepreneurs. Talk about a therapy problem happening inside a coaching space. How does somebody recognize in the middle of the anger whether they are being productive or not, where they really need to get help, what really needs to change in their business systems and their life systems? I'm throwing all the questions out here on the table. We may or may not actually be able to talk about all this, but I have noticed it as definitely a part where we leave the center of the Venn diagram and start drifting over into the bubble that is strictly therapy. And
Mhm.
it's like childhood trauma comes up, adulthood trauma comes up, parenting trauma comes up, like all the things. And personally do not feel it's appropriate that a business coaching program is like, I'm going to address this therapy thing in a business training space. Like they don't go together.
Absolutely not.
Um, but I do see people like seeking that because they are in a group setting or they're in a community space where other people are echoing how they're feeling, and so they're getting the validation, emotional validation there.
Mhm.
How would you approach it if and when you see that?
If and when I see it, I generally will let someone know, like, "Hey, we need to sit with this emotion.
Yeah.
We need to hang, like, if you are like in that rage, in that anger, most often people are not actually taking the time to process that, not even process, just feel that emotion. Not even going into processing it, but just actually feel angry,
Yeah.
feel sad, to grieve. There is so much grief to contend with in existence right now, but especially if you are a small business owner, if you are the person behind a small brand that is making money on these mean internet streets,
Mhm.
there's a lot of grief to contend with. And that is not one, that's not something that's a part of the poster child of online business because it's shiny and happy and you're doing this to make more money, to retire your husband and spend more time with your kids.
Yeah.
So it's actually acknowledging and saying, I am feeling angry.
Yeah.
I am feeling really sad. I am writing, and here's the thing, folks, grief is really fucking weird. Grief is going to show up in places you never expected, in ways you will never expect or understand,
Yeah.
and it's going to throw you for a loop. And the more you can accept grief is fucking weird, the better you can ride the waves.
That you have told me this personally offline when my cat died, and I was like, "It was the best statement I heard from anybody." I never told you that until now. Yay, on a recording. And eh, okay, let's say somebody is feeling they're listening to us now and they're like, "Oh my gosh, like I am hella angry. I think it's maybe you can't identify where the grief comes from. You don't even have to. You feel what you feel. It's valid. But then people also have to make money and pay their bills and whatnot. What is a small business owner to do if you don't have to say acting training, which is honestly emotional gym training where you're like, I can feel a thing and I can also function like because you've got all the thoughts going on while you're like delivering the performance. And so if you've not had that and you don't know what it feels like, it can feel like everything is just sort of like pulling you under like a tidal wave.
Mhm.
That is a really difficult place to function from. You don't make money from a place like that, at least not well.
No,
I've seen plenty of people burn their businesses to the ground in the unhealthy way. Not like your proper burn it down day, I might say. And like I mean, the struggle is for real. And I feel like I have seen that in a lot of different places. I'm just wondering, like, what would you, how would you handle it when you have clients going through that?
if they can afford to, I always encourage folks to take a full day to feel the feelings
Yeah,
before you make decisions on what you're going to do.
yeah,
Can't take a full day. Honestly, this sounds weird, but in college, I used to schedule anxiety attacks because I knew they were going to happen no matter what. I was maxed out on what I could do, what like my time was to the max.
yeah.
And after the first 2 months of my final year of college, I was like, "Well, I can obviously this is going to happen whether or not I want it to.
Yeah.
So if it's going to happen whether or not I want it to, it is now a part of my schedule
Yeah.
because then I can get back to work." So there would be an hour blocked off where it was like you are doing nothing but panicking, like paging through a magazine and panicking about how everything is falling apart in your life.
Can I just say, so I'm systems. I always say, you are your best system. I talk about this majority of the time with the people who still coach with me. And we're like, okay, you've got your business systems, but you are a major system in those business systems. And this is totally you as a system work, which is like, a lot of times people will default to like managing the time blocks on their calendar or to-do lists and productivity and whatnot. And it's like, but this is completely a productivity thing.
Mhm.
And I think that is a brilliant way of putting it, which is like, do I literally need to have time every day to process that? It's so funny because I'm thinking about it right now because I have a time block that I start my day with every day because I have realized in the morning if I jump into things, I'm no good for the rest of the day. I need me time first thing for a little while, and I'm a journaler, heavy journaler, and so I process everything and. I will give myself like an hour of journaling time every morning. And I think it is my scheduled anxiety time,
It's your
processing
scheduled
time.
emotional dump. It
Yes.
is it is your guarantee, And your body now knows this, especially if it's part of your routine.
And
It
then
is
you
your
train yourself.
guarantee. It
Mhm.
is your body's guarantee that it is going to get to feel things and it's going to get to process things, which
Yes.
means your body isn't in panic mode of what do I do with all of this?
Mhm.
Your journaling time isn't necessarily resolving or fixing it,
Nope.
but it is your body knows after however many weeks, months, years you've been doing this, your body knows we're all like we're getting a reset. So
Yep.
whether or not you have the time or the spoons, frankly, to process or acknowledge or do something later in the day as shit bubbles up,
Yeah.
you consciously and your physical being know, oh, we're going to get to work through this.
It's so true. One of my favorite books, librarian recommendation, I talk about this probably far too much in my audience, but Twyla Tharp, it's an old book now. It's called The Creative Habit.
Yes! I know
It
this
is
book.
so good. She talks about how, um, like, you need a standard schedule.
Mm,
Famous writers like Stephen King talk about the same thing. They have a standard schedule. Here, the library board just had Laura Dave, the author, for a fundraising event, and she talked about her standard schedule. She starts writing at 6 in the morning, and she writes until a certain time during the day, and she has a certain routine.
mm.
And the thing with that is, so when we're talking about productivity and time blocks, or you as a system, like, the thing is that you are training your nervous system to operate on schedule with you so that you can be productive, and you're not just, things aren't happening to you. You are an active participant with all the things. And I think that is where you go from unconscious to conscious,
Yes.
which is really what I think everyone is seeking. And then it eliminates the fraudy feelings when they're in their business spaces like, "Oh my god, I can't believe I'm having another meltdown." I've heard that in my old mastermind program multiple times, and it's like, I feel you, but as a coach, nobody wants to have to pull aside a coachee and have to be like, "What's going on here?" Like, "This is a point where I cannot support you anymore. What do you need?"
Yeah.
That's not fun for you, it's not fun for your coach, it's not what you signed up for. You don't wanna do that, you don't wanna go through that, and as a practitioner, you don't wanna have to do that with people either. And, I just think, like, we're figuring out, like, a timeline here.
For better or for worse, I've developed a reputation among my clients as the person that changes their business but doesn't. The
Yeah,
most like the every feedback I have and like so many testimonials are the everything has changed but nothing has changed.
yeah,
And I'd say probably about 50% of the clients that I work with, what they end up getting and changing and working on is not at all what they came in looking to work on, get help
yeah,
with, change.
yeah,
And I think this is where it's something that I've always staunchly it has always been a part of my process even before I was a coach. I did copywriting, brand design, and web design and development for a while. And
yeah,
in those initial brand strategy meetings, I would always let folks know, like, hey, we're going to talk and we're going to tell a lot of stories because I want to know you as a person.
yeah,
Both so that I understand, like, what's the vibe, but then I can start to train my ear on how you talk so that I can better get your voice down for the copy. And you know your therapy line. I certainly have a line for where I'll let you know when I'm uncomfortable because that's my own personal boundary. But I want you to exercise yours.
yeah,
If I ask you a question, you're like, I'm not comfortable talking about that. I don't need to know why this innocuous question is actually a huge trauma trigger for you. That's fine. I trust you. You are the expert of your own experience.
mhm,
And I would always let them know, like, if we get into therapy, Tori, and you realize like you are SOL, we can spend the rest of our coaching call. Like, I will sit with you while you go through psychology today. Do you need someone to check on you instead of doing like our brand check ins for the next 4 weeks? Am I asking you how many therapists you've reached out to? And if you've actually contacted any of them? Do we need to together go through this is my insurance? And I don't know how I'm going to pay for pay what you can sessions. We'll figure that out. Or maybe we're going to figure out like a snap flash offer to get you some revenue.
yeah,
But I can't I've always been very clear, there are things I cannot touch. I am not a therapist. And
yeah,
it's part of my language. I have a little header in my contract of like, "Hey, this looks like a lot of legalese." And it is. because and you please read through it all, do your due diligence, and know that the basis of it is you acknowledging, I am not your therapist and we are not engaging in counseling.
Yeah.
Because for better or for worse, I need to cover my ass and I need to make sure that you contractually understand I'm not touching that shit.
Yeah.
There's a lot of talk in online business coaching, equity centered spaces about the ethics of contracts.
Yeah.
And I am 100% in on that conceptually, while also practically, the world we live in, I do need to cover my ass.
Yes. I always say there is the ideal world and there is reality.
Yeah,
And maybe we can blame it on the few who would ruin it for the rest of us, whatever. But as a coach, it's important to state your boundaries from the beginning. That's what the contract should be for, is boundaries. And I think a lot of times people go into the contract thinking it's about monetary boundaries, like here's how you pay me the proper way I need to be paid. It's so much more than that. And
it's
um
defining scope.
yes.
It's defining scope so that you as a client know, "Oh, I can ask a question about this," or "I paid for a branding package. I probably shouldn't ask when they're going to build my website."
Yeah.
Definitely not a personal example.
We should totally know the difference. Yeah, I think that's a really important note too for people who are on the coach E side, where they're going through the period that we are all collectively experiencing right now, and to listen to, we're just two individuals on this planet, but to tune in here and to recognize that, like, we talk about it bluntly in our peer space, and we also talk about it bluntly with our clients in the client space. And so if you haven't had that experience and you've been feeling like something is off and wrong, and you're not imagining it, but figuring out a way to buy yourself some time so that you can make a better, more regulated decision is better for you. Just
If
because I've
a
seen,
coach
yeah,
won't let you take the time to process and consider a decision, if they are saying you need to make a decision on this discovery call right now,
yeah,
that's not the coach for you.
no, no, yeah. And similarly, I feel like community spaces where you're like, man, I'm really drained every
Mm.
time I'm talking with them. This is the woo-woo side of things, but I feel like there's also community spaces right now where the emotional dysregulation, the empaths in our world are just soaking it up like dry sponges, soaking up some water. Um and you deserve to not have that, but it can be hard to figure out how to leave spaces and
If you are in a
learn.
space, that's where you reach out to your facilitator.
Yeah.
Now, granted, if your facilitator is actively participating in it,
That's kind of more where I was thinking, because I've seen some examples of this recently. Sadly, more than one.
yeah. If your facilitator is not, that's where you reach out to them and say like, "Hey, I am super uncomfortable for X, Y, and Z reasons, and this feels antithetical to the spirit of this group or to what we are like, why
Yeah.
we are here together." Frankly, also, if it is the facilitator, reach out to them. They need to know. I
Mhm.
think, especially, I don't know if you've experienced this as a woman. I know I have. I am so scared to disagree with people for
Yeah.
fear of being put on blast and for fear of being painted as a diva, as the troublemaker, as
Mhm.
the one who thinks she's better than everyone else.
Yeah. Yeah. I have bit my tongue more times than I would like to admit in all kinds of places and spaces, because
Oh,
I'm like, I can read the room, and the room is angry. And I was like, this is like a reverse witch hunt situation going on. And I'm like, I just know A, I don't belong here. And also B, like, if you're that dysregulated, you're not going to hear, and you don't care about my opinion at this point anyway. So, you know, I can make decisions
But
based on
it's still important. I shared this story personally with you a few days ago. It's still so important that we speak up and say something.
yeah,
I won't do the whole story right now, but the short version is that I was in a similar situation and I was at my breaking point and I was fed up. And so like when we had to do a share around the circle of like how things went,
yeah,
I was very honest and was like, I don't think I belong here. And
yeah,
I think that's really okay.
yeah,
I'm really glad I came. This is not a comment on who is here nor an evaluation of the programming. What's clear is that I vehemently disagree with what's being taught, and that's okay because it's helping me critically analyze what matters most to me.
yeah,
And the number of women that came up to me after that sharing circle that were like, oh my God, thank you for saying something. I feel it too. I'm so uncomfortable. When during that sharing circle, they'd been like, this is great.
I have to say, I love that you as a human design manifester totally did what a manifester should do, and I am completely demonstrating what happens when a manifester has a throat wound is like, "I'm just not gonna say anything right now." So yeah, let's all be more what you did, please.
It's when you respectfully vocalize dissent or disagreement, it can be a catalyst for community and conversation and healing.
Yeah.
And the key part in that is respectfully. Now, a lot of us with ADHD, we got that rejection sensitivity dysphoria. What is the RSD?
It's rejection sensitivity dis
Dysphoria, disorder,
dysphoria.
dysphoria. Thank you. Um, and so it can feel really personal.
Yeah.
When we take a step back, it's not.
Mm-mm.
It's not. And that's where you can I mean, and that's a perfect example of, is this a therapy problem or a business problem?
Mhm.
It's a therapy problem. Are they actually rejecting me or even my business? No, they're saying this is not working.
Yeah.
And if I'm the business owner, it's my job to go, all right, we got it. Like, it's not working. What do we got to do?
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, it's the times moving forward are gonna be so interesting to watch because coaching industry is undergoing massive changes right now, and the rate at which old large programs are dying is incredible. And
Insane.
community spaces have changed. People are going truly back in person. Like the real hybrid is starting to finally show up now, and which is exciting. It's super exciting. I'm curious to see how this, you know, TikTok infused cultural dynamic continues to impact people waking up and figuring out what they need most. Um,
Yeah, I don't think we've hit the climax yet where we start to even out, but historically, we know everything is a pendulum swing where we swing from one extreme to the other, and eventually we find the
yeah.
middle ground. We're going from like the complete repression of the greatest generation and the boomers into the complete rage and unpacking of Gen X and millennials.
Yeah.
And Gen Z and Gen Alpha, I think, are starting to,
Yeah.
they're getting closer to a middle ground of like, okay, we maybe don't have to share everything, but also we got to talk about a lot of stuff.
I love the temperance of Gen Z so much. They're entering the workforce now, and I love them so much because they're like, and here are my boundaries, and that is too much. And I'm just like, oh, God bless.
Oh, it's so wonderful. It's so lovely, especially because it like as a millennial, I grew up with an ex being taught an expectation of workspaces that by the time I entered the workforce didn't exist anymore,
No.
but I was still expected to abide by.
Yeah.
And it and that in my opinion, like that created the rage of so many millennials of like, you told me to do this in order to get this. I'm doing this, not getting this, and you're shitting on me because I'm not getting it because you set up the conditions so that I couldn't.
Oh, I know. It's so hard. Which is why we're entrepreneurs now. So there you go. Just checked out. Just checked out of that system completely.
Yeah. And I mean, this is another chat for another time, but like the ways in which so many entrepreneurs are people who are neurodivergent, who are low capacity, who are disabled,
Yes.
This is the and I think this is what we're seeing in this cultural shift. We're talking about this third option of people who, yes, I want to be a small business owner, but it's not because I want to retire my husband and have more time with my kids. It's because the traditional workplace is not built for me and I cannot survive there.
I would argue that the world's systems have shifted so dramatically that things like Social Security and the healthcare system do not support us in a way that it supported the previous generations. So all of it doesn't really apply very well anymore. But I do feel like the earlier instance of online entrepreneurship of like the thing that came out, I'm going to retire my husband, I'm going to
Mhm.
get the Tesla, haha, on all the people who own Teslas now, by the way, but that's for another discussion too. And the material things and the beach laptop on the beach lifestyle crap, like there was a whole box of stuff from that. And I would actually argue that that was not modern entrepreneurship. That was the old, method of continuing to, you know, very few at the top have the privilege and the money, and that's all been crumbling over the last decade. So we're just going to
It's still
create
a
new things.
patriarchal blueprint. A patriarchal blueprint is a pyramid. A
Mhm.
matriarchal blueprint is a spiral
Mhm.
where it's a circle. It is always giving back. It is always cyclical.
It's gonna take time. I have noticed that, in the systematic way that people think that they are very trained to say yes or no in a particular way that we have all been trained since we were children to hear about things that are for sale or to hear about things that are meant for genuine betterment. But there's a way that they have been presented and sold or offered for free, even. And that is still crumbling down, like that is still being broken apart. So when you are working with your audiences and you're like, but I'm offering it in a new way, and it's like, yeah, it is probably going to feel kind of slow because people are used to actually being sold in a very conditioned pattern, and you aren't going to break down that conditioning because that might be a therapy thing. Maybe just a little bit.
Maybe. Sounds like a therapy problem.
Sounds like they were okay. I have a feeling that we're gonna have more of these. But in the interest of not talking for 2 hours and becoming
Mhm.
someone whose name rhymes with Brogan,
Who could that be?
I don't know, but I'm gonna make sure we don't do that. So, thank you so much for hopping on the mic, and I'm so glad everyone here gets to know you more too. And I'll have all of your like connection info, links, everything in the show notes, and we'll just continue hanging out.
Thanks for letting me yell into a microphone about why we need to feel our emotions.
You're so welcome. Thanks for joining me.